For queer men, finding connection wasn't always easy. Before Grindr, there were secret places, by rivers, in the woods, on hidden trails, where desire and community came alive. One of those places still thrives today in southern Vermont. Today, I am going to take you to Rock River and make the case for why cruising is making a comeback. Before the internet, there wasn't Grindr, there was no Scruff. If you were traveling and you wanted to find other queer men, then you had to rely on word of mouth or through secret kind of underground publications. The most famous publication was the Dameron Address book, and it listed bars, bookstores, bathhouses, and yes, cruising spots. It was discreet, it was pocket-sized, and it basically said, hey, whether you're in San Francisco or Boston or anywhere in between, here's where you can go to find your people. And in that way, cruising spots weren't just about sex. Sure, sex happened, but it was really about extending a lifeline of authenticity to queer men in a society that didn't always welcome them. You could take off your social mask and really experience a sense of community. So let's fast forward to today. I recently purchased Frog Meadow, which is a clothing optional bed and breakfast in the rolling hills of southern Vermont. Frog Meadow is truly my favorite place on earth, just for the scenic beauty and like the sense of community that you get when staying there. But a big draw for guests is nearby Rock River. And when gay guys talk about Rock River, they're often referring to the Nude Beach, which is a 20-minute hike from the parking area along Route 30. For decades and decades, queer men have been coming here for a sense of connection. Yes, and sometimes sex, but in one of the most beautiful natural settings that you could ever possibly imagine. So before I purchased Frog Meadow, I visited there as a guest some 40 times, and I'm embarrassed to admit that I only went to Rock River, to the Nude Beach, on my last trip to Frog Meadow. Because I own a porn company, people just kind of assume that I'm very comfortable with like public nudity and with sex, and the truth is I'm actually quite bashful, and going to Rock River was really, it was very much outside of my comfort zone. So I went with some friends and we hiked and we hiked and we hiked and we finally got there. And if you want to go, then make a friend in southern Vermont and I'm sure they'll be happy to show you the way. Or come stay with us at Frog Meadow. Anyway, we finally got to the Nude Beach, and it was a late afternoon on a Saturday, and there were probably 50 naked men just hanging out on the beach. And there were two things that immediately struck me. The first was that there was something for everyone on that beach. Whether you like twinks or otters or bears or cubs or muscle gods or jocks, it was all there. It was like the full menagerie of sexy gay men. And the second thing was the respect. It was a respect for one another, but also a respect for the land and a respect for this very special place. There was no loud music, there was no litter. Everyone really interacted with a sense of community. In fact, Rock River is maintained by the Rock River Preservation, so you can thank them for keeping this very special place alive. And Vermont is a bit unique when it comes to their laws regarding public nudity, which is allowed unlike many other places. So it's a very special place in a very special state. As I was walking to the beach and trying to decide like whether or not I was gonna get naked, this gentleman who was seated looked at me and he goes, "Hey, you're David Wavid." And I just thought to myself, isn't it peculiar to be like known enough from the internet that people recognize you, but not famous enough that people actually know how to pronounce your name? So I was just like, yeah, that's me. I also quickly realized that everyone on the Nude Beach was in fact nude. And so the only way to really stand out is if you keep your clothes on. So I was like, all right, when in Rome, and I stripped down on the beach. When I reflect back on it, there's no other way to describe it than it feeling almost like a time warp. Like no one was on their phones, and in fact there's no service because you're out in the forest. And two guys were playing catch, lovers over here were kissing, and it was this like really rich golden sunlight streaming in through the trees that actually made it seem almost as though I was watching a film from like the 1970s. Like I swear I could see like film grain. So if you're at Rock River, the action kind of happens upstairs in the woods. So one of my friends and I were like, let's see what's happening in there. Let's go check out the forest. So we're making our way in, and then he jokingly says to me, "Hey, that really hot guy just checked you out," which he hadn't, and I quickly spun to look at him, and then because I looked at him, he looked at me, and our eyes locked, and he smiled, and then I smiled, and I turned my head back and I was like, oh my God, I think I just cruised him. Before I could really say anything at all, he started to walk over, and so I was with my friend, and I was like, are we okay with this? Do we want to do this? What do you want to do? And he was like, what do you want to do? And before we could come to any sort of decision, this hot muscle god pops up next to us, and he was like, hey, you boys here just to hike, or are you looking for some fun? And I looked at my friend and I was like, I don't know, we were just talking about that. What do you want to do? And he was like, I'm down for some fun. And so we had a threesome in the woods. And at some point, this like really cute redheaded twink bounced over, and it was really interesting to see how people navigate sex in real life when you're not on an app. Like, he made eye contact with each of us to kind of get consent, be like, is this okay if I join? And we were fine with it, and he joined, so then our threesome became a foursome. So I'm gonna be really real with you guys, and that was, for me, very far outside my comfort zone. And I think there was like a disconnect between my body and my mind, and really trying to be present with everyone. But I was nervous and really anxious, and so I didn't get hard, and that's okay. Like, I'm fine with that and very gentle with myself, but I also know that if I become more comfortable with it and more relaxed, that next time I could be a little bit more present in that experience. Okay, so why am I making the case that cruising is coming back? Part of it is because I think the apps are bullshit. I honestly think most of the guys on Scruff or Grindr are just killing time. If you are intending to meet up, the guys are always like, oh, maybe tomorrow, and tomorrow becomes next week, and next week becomes never. And maybe it's analysis paralysis, that there's so many options on Grindr that actually making a choice becomes impossible, that there's too many choices to lock in with one. And so at the end of the day, you end up making like no choice at all. And then there's the fact that people just surprise you in real life, in good ways and in bad ways, that sometimes you see someone that you think you're gonna be really into on an app, and in real life the chemistry is not there. And then there's other times where someone might not be your quote unquote so-called type, but you feel an incredible chemistry in person. Apps don't allow for that. That's only something that you can experience in person. And so you have to wonder that there's actually a lot of really good sex that all of us are leaving on the table. So for me, cruising is different. It's immediate. It is embodied. It is in person. It's about feeling your desire in real time, and quite frankly, like, you feel alive. And I can't help but think that more people, especially queer people, are really hungry for that. Hungry for a connection that's not mediated by an algorithm, but something that you experience with your senses in your body, in real life. And look, if this stirs something in your soul, then maybe you'll make the trip to Rock River or a cruising spot closer to home for you. I know we would love to have you at Frog Meadow, and in fact, we're taking reservations for the new season, which opens April 21st, 2026. So many of the weekends are already filling up, so snag your room today. So at the end of the day, for me, cruising isn't just about sex, that's part of it, but it is about the freedom to express yourself sexually. It is about shedding like the program shame of who we are. It is about connection, and it's about intimacy, and it's about being a part of a community. I think places like Rock River remind us all that desire does not need a screen or a filter or the perfect profile. It just needs presence and some courage and a little curiosity. You know, these are traditions that have carried queer men through decades and decades of invisibility. But I would say that they are just as vital today in different ways. So whether you are dipping your toe into the river for the first time or stripping down on the nude beach with 50 other queer men, you are part of something bigger than yourself. A lineage of community, of pleasure, and of freedom. And honestly, in a world that continues to try to pull us apart, maybe that is exactly why cruising is making a comeback.